I read the book about the tradwife influencer who gets transported back into the time period that she's been glamorizing, and I almost DNF'd it at 75% because what do you mean she had a romantic fantasy about God? I'm tired, guys. If you've been anywhere on Book Talk this year, you've probably seen Yesteryear by Caro Claire Burke. This is arguably one of the most popular books, if not the most popular fiction book to come out in 2026. So naturally, as somebody who reads a lot of books, I was very curious to give it a shot and see if it lives up to the hype. I think if I could sum up my feelings about this book, it was a 10 out of 10 premise, but the execution fell short. The premise is what drew me in the first place and what kept me reading the entire time. I wanted to see what was going to happen to this woman. I know a lot of people really don't like the ending, but for me, the ending, the twist, how it all comes together is what ultimately saved the book. With the twist, I was able to excuse a lot of the things that were bothering me earlier on in the book. I think it's ultimately a very 2020s book. I don't think this book has the staying power to be super relevant past this present moment that we're in, with the intersection of influencer culture and tradwives. Internet controversies that have happened over the last several years, like Ballerina Farm and Ruby Frankie, are at the forefront of people's minds right now, but in a couple of decades, I really think this whole thing is going to feel a bit dated. And that's not to say that Caro Claire Burke shouldn't have written the book, but it is to say that I think you should read this book now if you're going to read it at all, because I feel like if you wait, it's going to lose a bit of its relevance. This whole book feels like rage bait and satire catered specifically towards feminists. As someone who is probably the target audience for this, I did not vibe with it. I don't feel like Natalie Heller Mills is a particularly compelling villain. I love reading stories that include complicated, nuanced, villainous women who have so much depth and complexity to them, especially as they work within patriarchal societies. It can be very interesting to see what happens to a smart and intelligent and strong woman when patriarchal structures hold her back. Two of my favorite examples of this are Alicent Hightower from House of the Dragon and Serena Joy Waterford from The Handmaid's Tale. They're so evil, but you understand exactly why they're doing what they're doing most of the time. And even though you may not agree with the decisions they make, you feel like you can empathize with these women to an extent, and they have moments where you feel like they could almost be redeemable. Natalie, on the other hand, I have no idea why she did any of the things that she did in her entire life. All of the choices that Natalie makes are very reactionary. It's really hard to latch on to her in any way, shape, or form, even from an analytical standpoint. Now, I want to be clear that this criticism is not because she's an unlikable main character. I can get behind an unlikable main character better when I know why they're making the choices they're making, especially because we're spending so much time in their head. I think Burke takes the satire almost to the extreme in trying to be non-specific about a lot of things around Natalie's character. We end up not really getting any real depth, and I think the majority of that comes from the lack of exploration of her faith. There's a lot of interesting psychology to get into with Christianity and the different denominations, and I think if Burke would have picked one to hone in on some of those intrinsic beliefs, it would have been more powerful. It would have been a lot more compelling for me to see Natalie's character grow up with these staunch beliefs that she is bought into and make choices in life because she feels like this is the life that's always been laid out by God and her religion and her community, only to have that reality come crashing down when it doesn't match up the version of it that was inside of her head, and then have her make the decisions that she makes as she slowly unravels that this is not at all what she imagined, and she's in trouble. That's the book that I want to read.